My name is John Mossa. I am a white male um, with a disability. I have complex care needs. I use a power wheelchair. I use the pronouns he and him. I have black hair and a black mustache um, as a description of myself. This presentation I'm about to give is a much shortened version that I did in May, and that it's about nothing about us without us, disability advocacy, and COVID-19. So just a little bit about the Center for Independent Living in Toronto. SILT is a resource center for people with disabilities, by people with disabilities. SILT programs assist people with disabilities to take control over their lives and live independently in the community. SILT core programs are information and referral, a volunteer program. We also have peer support, a parenting with a disability network. We also have the attendance service application center, the direct funding program, and my program is the independent living skills training. And we also do community engagement. Basically, I work one-on-one with people with disabilities with regards to self-advocacy, and I do a lot of skill development workshops on self-advocacy. So in my presentation in May, I had 5 objectives. I will actually just talk about 2. Objective 2, which is a social justice framework, nothing about us without us, the independent living philosophy, and human rights. And objective 4, which is talking about self-advocacy tools. So on a broad look at social justice framework from a disability perspective, I'm going to be speaking about nothing about us without us, the independent living philosophy, and also a recent statement by the Ontario Human Rights Commission regarding COVID. So nothing about us without us expresses the conviction that people with disabilities know what's best for us. It matters because people with disabilities must be at the front and center as visible leaders to share our voice and our experience. It also reinforces the role of people without disabilities as allies and partners who share the road toward full inclusion and equality. It also unites us with all other marginalized groups and invisible individuals and groups who are demanding a seat at any decision-making table about us. So nothing about us without us includes disability justice principles, such as was mentioned by the previous speaker, intersectionality. People with disabilities have intersectional identities. Indigenous people, gender, class, race, and sexual orientations. Audre Lorde said, "We do not live single issue lives." The nothing about us without us disability justice principle talks about having a commitment to a cross disability and cross grassroots movement of marginalized groups and allies. We must build sustainable alliances so that no one is left behind. Crip Camp, the documentary, is an excellent example of this cross disability and cross grassroots movement. An important aspect also is disability justice recognizes the wholeness of the person. People have inherent worth outside of capitalist notions of productivity. Each person has a full history and life experiences. So nothing about us without us is a key independent living philosophy principle. As I mentioned, that the person with a disability is the best expert regarding their needs. As well, the independent living philosophy talks about it's founded on the right of people with disabilities to live with dignity in our chosen community, participate in all aspects of our lives, and most importantly, to take control and make decisions about our own lives. So what has happened with COVID-19 and its impact on people with disabilities? During the COVID-19 pandemic, the use of the medical model approach has grown in our healthcare system, with people with disabilities being increasingly treated as sick and as objects of health intervention or deprioritization. An example of this is the Ontario triage protocol that deprioritizes people in case if there's a surge. It's still in its draft form, but it's highly problematic. Or we're also viewed as a burden to ourselves and our families. We are seeing the erosion of the independent living philosophy, especially during this time of COVID. COVID has increased the social and economic inequalities for people with disabilities, seniors, and marginalized groups. People with disabilities are often placed at society's margins and stand to be most impacted by COVID, but we're usually the last to be heard. This presentation was about getting people to come together to highlight and amplify and advocate our human rights. So specifically, I'm going to just briefly talk about the Ontario Human Rights Commission released a policy statement talking about how there must be a human rights-based approach to managing COVID-19 and calls on governments to approach and prevent and treat COVID-19 as a human rights obligation. It also talks about protecting vulnerable groups like people with disabilities. And it talks about to respond to ableism, sexism, racism, ageism, and other forms of discrimination. And it also talks about strengthening human rights accountability and oversight in policy and programs that are established during COVID. So I'm going to be talking about some of the self-advocacy tools, and most of them are virtual advocacy tools that we can use, especially now during COVID. My workshop talked about the four steps of self-advocacy. I'm going to be talking about the second step, which is picking your self-advocacy tool to best advocate for your situation. So there are 6 advocacy tools I will talk about. There are probably more. These are tried and true self-advocacy tools that people can use in their daily lives or trying to get an issue across when they're doing self-advocacy. So the first is creating a good open-ended question. Good open-ended questions are designed to encourage a full and meaningful answer. They can be effectively used in virtual town halls or workshops or meetings like this, or even used on Twitter. A good open-ended question begins with a useful fact and information. It's important that you know your material. It's important that you ask a question that matters to you, and that it usually begins with what, why, how, describe, or tell me about. It's important to keep a good question short and also be concise as possible. It makes your question a lot clearer. When you're in a town hall or asking a question, it shouldn't be longer than 60 seconds. I know there'll be a Q&A here. Be mindful, that the 60-second rule is because you want to allow others to ask questions as well. And of course, on Twitter, you only allow 280 characters to really pose a question to somebody you would like the question posed to. So the second tool is how to have an effective meeting. When you set up a meeting, it's important to call the person or email them, the person you wish to speak to, give the reason you would like to meet, and then ask when they'll be available to meet with you. You can work alone or with a support person. At the meeting, it's important you present your case in a very clear and concise way, stating the exact nature of your concern and precisely how you want the person and what they should do about it. In my 20 years of working at SILT, I always ask people to prioritize their issues and start with the first top 2 issues that are most important to them. And when you're in the meeting, when you address these issues, ask the person that you're meeting with for straight answers to your questions. As well, when you meet with a person, if it's a manager or a politician, and they're agreeing with you with the points that you raise, it's important that you ask that you get it in writing, have a timeline to put the solutions in place. It's also very important to have a calm and respectful dialogue and show that you're willing to work with them. Even if the person disagrees with you, it's important to thank them for their time and the opportunity to meet. After the meeting, it's important to do a follow-up letter or email, thanking the person that you met with, and also summarizing any commitments that they made, and ask for an update on what has been done. And if you had somebody or a support person with you, it's important to keep your allies informed and thank them too. So the third tool, which is how to create a good email or letter or open letter. A good personal letter can go a long way in solving your issues. It also is a more formal way of resolving your issue because you have things documented now. Whether it's part of a letter writing campaign or on your own, the following guidelines will help you write a really good self-advocacy letter. So this style, it's very important to do a personal letter. A lot of maybe letter writing campaigns have a template, but it's good to put it in your own words. It has much more power. And an email is just as effective as a letter by post, especially now during COVID. Everything is virtual. And it's like I was saying before, it's important just to emphasize 2 or 3 major points and keep on the same topic. Try to keep your letter to 1 page, and please try not to exceed 2 pages. The contents of your letter should have a brief introduction, outlining your concerns, and really importantly, describe the impact of the issue it's had on you. Give solutions or ask for a commitment for a specific action. Thank the person at the end of the letter for any past positive actions they've taken. Request that they respond to your letter. And you can CC or carbon copy by sharing your letter to other individuals or organizations who are also advocating for your cause. It's a good idea to keep a copy of your letter that you're sending so you can refer back to it in case you receive a response. And then also do a follow-up right back to the person, thanking them for a response, or reminding them of your request and any commitments that they might have. So the fourth tool, and it's the use of social media like Twitter. I know a lot of people here probably are very familiar with Twitter and have used Twitter. The audience that I spoke with, it was just maybe starting to understand the power of Twitter, how it could be a great democratizer, how it can really directly connect you with other allies, reporters, politicians right away. It can help you reach a lot of people. It's really the only major social media platform that allows you to kind of direct access to key influencers. As people are aware, tweets or messages are 280 characters long. That's the importance of keeping things concise. Twitter can be used. I have used Twitter. In the 7 years I've used Twitter, I've built a following of about 380 people by finding and following allies that I felt, dealt with disability justice. And I share tweets, and I also amplify other tweets that deal with social justice. I learn about breaking news and events and advocacy campaigns that way, workshops such as this. And it's also a way to contact reporters and others in the media. And finally, sometimes politicians to respond. People know that the @ symbol is used when you have the person's Twitter name, and hashtags are used to denote areas of interest. For example, there is hashtag nothing without us, hashtag COVID-19, hashtag disability urgent, and hashtag not just a visitor. Hashtags, change all the time, and it's a way of searching for tweets and people. And some of these hashtags that I have were trending, especially during the peak of COVID. Not just a visitor is about how hospitals and long-term care facilities have had really restrictive policies with people attending their loved ones. And it's a good way to find other people and connect. So another effect of social media, obviously, is Facebook. And Facebook can really, create a great deal of visibility. It can engage a large audience by taking action and mobilizing your grassroots to bring an issue in front of politicians. I've used Facebook to really build a network of allies and organizations. I share and create information and campaigns such as workshops on self-advocacy. I use it to take action, empower others, enable them, and cultivate a movement. Share open letters, petitions, group meetings, and forums. And what's important, how you attract people to your Facebook page and post, is by keeping comments positive and constructive. The fifth tool, and this is really kind of a tool that if you've used all the other tools in your toolbox and nothing has worked, sometimes you may have to go to the news media. And it's really important to know how to approach the media and how to get your voice heard through newspaper, television, and radio. It can really increase public awareness about your issue and can also catch the attention of elected officials. Now, the approach to media, there's a general understanding that maybe to approach newspapers first, because TV and radio journalists often get their stories from newspapers. And newspapers also are able to go more in depth on a topic. It's important to approach newspapers on a Sunday or a Thursday, as Mondays and Fridays are generally slow news days. The best way to approach a journalist is to write to a point email and follow up with a phone call. Show that the reporter, you're not trying to sell them your view, but trying to help them do their own, but you're trying to help them do their job by providing useful information and an interesting story. So what do you do when the media contacts you? It's important to write down the person's name and publication of the journalist and ask them questions about the focus of the story and who else will be interviewed. Be prepared with statistics and examples, and keep in mind your key message of your campaign so that you don't get off track. Keep control of the interview by returning to your key points. And if you do not know an answer to a question, say so and offer to get back to the journalist promptly. Just some other tips. And it's very important to remember that the press is not always with us. What they want is good stories and to cover the news. It's important to be absolutely accurate. It's important to tell a story from beginning, middle, and end. It's important to return phone calls from reporters promptly, because tomorrow is too late. And be patient and polite. Reporters are always in a hurry. There's never enough time to do all the stories, and it depends on what else is going on. So the last tool is how to create a good petition. A petition is a good tool for a straightforward issue that can get widespread support. Each level of government, municipal, provincial, federal, have specific guidelines for submitting petitions, and each have sample templates. The general guidelines for writing a petition is that you should have a petition statement, should be clear and concise. The statement should start with, "We, the undersigned, hereby affirm." It's important to keep your petition short as possible while laying out your concerns. And start with general principles and progressively get more specific, ending with your request. And this is really important. Make sure that your petition statement appears on each page of your petition, or it's not eligible when it's submitted to the government. So I just want to thank the organizers for inviting me to speak about self-advocacy and the tools. The link is here for my full recorded webinar and links to the resources that I've talked about. And my contact information and email are also on this slide.